All right, Entree Architect community, it's 4 p.m. Eastern, which means it's time for the Entree Architect Context and Clarity conversation. I got to stop reading ahead. Hey, it's Friday, September 30th. It means it's the final Friday in the month of September. So welcome to Context and Clarity Live. If as you get here, say hi. Let us know that you're here. Let us know where here is. Where are you? Where in the world are you? As we have this conversation today. If we've never met before, I'm Jeff. I'm joined by Catherine. Hi, Catherine.
Hello, Jeff.
I'm in Indianapolis. Where are you, Catherine?
I am in Massachusetts.
Catherine. It's Massachusetts, Catherine,
Mm-hmm.
in the room, in the house.
Yep.
Um, we come here, sort of here, every weekday afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern for one reason, so that we can find clarity around things that matter most to you, the architect. It doesn't matter if you're the employee of a firm or you own your own firm. Maybe you circled a date on the calendar. Hey, raise your hand if you started your own firm since March of 2020. If you have, we're here for you. If you're getting ready to start your own firm, we're here for you. Maybe you're starting to rethink or reimagine what that firm could or maybe even should be. All of the topics that we cover, one topic every day, they all fall under the broad umbrella of the business of architecture, and they're all the need to know topics for the success of entrepreneur architects just like you. Like I said at the beginning, it's the final Friday in the month of September, which means it is book club day.
Woo.
So happy book club day. Woo, woo.
Yep. Hey, look, Jefferson skimmed the book. We have someone who skimmed it. So definitely come on.
Excellent.
Come on, Jefferson.
Yep. Jump on
Yeah.
over. I was chuckling because Jessica wanted to know if that means I win the bathtub. As our countdown was going, I posted the link in the comments there. If you'd like to join us on
Oh,
screen, you can click. I'm not eligible for the
I
bathtub.
don't know. I think you should get the bathtub this one time. You did
You
post
think?
before you came on. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I'll take home the bathtub.
Yeah.
Um, Scott has joined us. He says, Oregon or bust. Wish I could take a schooner instead of drive. So I'm curious. I'm curious.
Hmm.
Scott is apparently driving to Oregon. So don't context and clarity and drive. Hopefully you've got a driver or such. But he's also on Twitch. So does
Hmm.
Twitch work better from the car than the other platforms? I don't know. We'll see what Scott tells us. But I
Uh-huh.
see him first in the room today, which means that he is the official winner of today's John Kinney Memorial Crocheted Bathtub Award. Congratulations, Scott, the Turkish architect over there on Twitch. Jessica is joining us from LA, and Jefferson also from LA. There's the Wolverines turned Los Angelites. I don't know if that's what you call people that live in Los Angeles. Angelinos, that's what it is. Jefferson says he's eating lunch. All right.
Mhm.
Um, so maybe after Jefferson finishes his lunch, he'll join us over here on the screen. Anybody else that's out there, say hi. Let us know that you're here. Even if you're just planning to listen in or multitask, that's okay. Again, today it is book club day. So we're going to discuss Radical Candor by Kim Scott. We'll jump into that here in just a minute. And again, if you'd like to join Catherine and I on the screen, there's a link in the comments. It's the first comment. Click that link and you can pop up here in Restream and join us for this conversation. If you're somewhere on Facebook commenting away, telling us all of your biggest takeaways from Radical Candor, and you say,
Oh,
"Hey,
yeah.
my comments aren't showing up," then the reason is because you're in a private Facebook group and you need to give Facebook permission to talk with Restream. So open up another tab, type chat.restream.io/FB as in Facebook. Type that into your browser window, and a couple of clicks later, you'll give Facebook permission to let all of those great takeaways about radical candor out of
Mm.
Facebook and into our conversation here today. So, again, if you want to join us, there's a link for that. See, Leslie's comments are not showing up. Manuel's comments are not showing up. Manuel
Hmm.
says he's here reporting for duty. Welcome back. Glad you're here. And Leslie says she's tuning in from blustery Raleigh, North Carolina.
Mm,
She says it's a long, there's a bunch of O's in there. A long book. It is a long book.
yeah.
It is. How long is it?
Too long.
That
Well,
may
I'm
be.
just gonna say it's a little bit too long.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's my
Man,
opinion.
well, yeah. What does it say on? Was it like 9 hours or something on Audible?
No, it's longer. Let me just check.
Longer than that?
Talk amongst yourselves. I'm gonna look it up.
Okay, I'll talk to myself. I do that a
Okay.
lot. Manuel says I saw 3 videos by Kim Scott, though I did not read the book. Well, come on over. After watching her 3 times, I feel like I get what the book is about. It's about communicating with sincerity and empathy with your employees and or colleagues. I think that's a really great summary.
That's it.
I'm glad.
That's why the book was too long.
Well, there you go. Save yourself 13 hours of how long is it?
I don't know. I still can't find it.
All right. Save
Oh,
yourself.
11 hours and 56 minutes.
Oh my gosh. So save
Oh, half
yourself
a
12
day.
hours and
Mhm.
just read Manuel's summary there. Let's see. Um, and seriously, if you do want to join us here, I'll just drop the comment in here again, or not the comment, the link here again. Just click that link, and then you can pop on over here to Restream with Catherine and I, and have the conversation. Matthew, hi Matthew. He says 232 pages is long. I have no idea.
Was it only 232 pages?
Maybe it's tiny,
I
tiny
don't know.
print.
Maybe it's a big book. I mean, maybe physically it's a big book. I mean, I don't know how big each of the pages. It took
Yeah,
her
I don't
12
know.
hours to read it. So,
Yep. Yeah, I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage there because I don't have the physical book, so I don't know about the number of pages. But I lengthwise, according to Audible, it's well, it would be hard to compare it to last month's Context and Clarity Book Club book, How to Write
yeah,
One Song by Jeff Tweedy, because that was a relatively short book. So
that was.
this is what, maybe 3 times as long as that one.
Um, I think that one was 3 hours. So it's
Four
about
times.
3 to 4 times
4 times.
longer.
Yeah, yeah. Not saying good or
Yeah.
bad, but it's a lot in it.
Just long.
Scott says I zoomed Context and Clarity on 101 on the 101 from the dashboard of the car, zipping through Humboldt County a couple months back, so all could drive with me. All right, I love mobile Context and Clarity.
I don't
That's
remember that.
excellent. He said when last month, I guess, a couple months
Hmm,
back. All right, excellent.
okay.
Excellent. So, again, welcome. If you've just arrived, you found the Entre Architect Context and Clarity conversation for Friday, September 30th. It is Book Club Day because it's the final Friday of the month, and this month we've been reading, and we will now discuss Radical Candor by Kim Scott. So,
Mm,
Catherine, not to put you on the spot, but to put you on the spot, what you think about, other than it being long, what you think about
That's
Radical Candor?
That's why I always started my book reports in school. It was a long book or, whatever. Um, I I mean, I think it's just interesting to think about one's managerial sort of style along these two axes. The axis of caring and the axis of challenging. What do they call it? Willing to piss people off. The challenge directly axis. So, I mean, it's kind of interesting, and I do see myself more in ruinous empathy,
Mhm. Yeah.
because I'd rather just fire somebody and out of the blue after telling them they were doing a good job. So yeah, I could work on radical candor in my dealings with people. But so it was interesting in that way. Um, having the ruinous empathy, radical candor, manipulative insincerity, and obnoxious aggression.
The 4 quadrants, right?
Four quadrants. Yeah, if you don't care as much about people, you end up being, but you don't mind people pissing people off, then you're at an obnoxious aggression.
Yeah.
If you're a little bit more of a wimp, but you don't care about people, manipulative insincerity is your thing.
Yeah,
So,
the so I don't know. I didn't look to see if Audible had multiple versions, but the version that I listened to was it says fully revised and updated edition.
Mhm. Yeah, I listened to that one
And
too.
yeah, yeah. So when I was listening, um, I guess it was probably to the introduction or the preface or whatever they called it. She talked about, or the narrator talked
Mm.
about the reason that there needed to be a revised and updated edition. And I guess it surprised me, as I was listening to it. It basically, so the deal was, she wrote the book. I don't know what the original date was, but she wrote the book. And then at some point in the future, her friends started messaging her and said, "Hey, did you see this episode of a show called Silicon Valley?" And I've never seen this show before. I've never even heard of it, but
Mm.
um, she seems to think it's a good show. But in one of the episodes of the show, they sort of spoofed the book.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah, I remember that now.
yeah, and that story, or I guess the plot from that show surprised me. Um, she said that uh, the boss was a real jerk, and there was a copy of the book on the table behind him or the desk behind him or something like that.
Funny.
And he said, he's being a jerk. And he says, "Look, I'm being radically candid," or something, or yeah, radically candid or something like that.
Mhm.
And she said, that's when it really hit her that some people were using the idea of radical candor just to give them license to be a jerk. And I think if that's the case, then they didn't actually read the book. But
Yeah,
um, but I thought
or they're
that
too
was
far down on the not caring about people scale.
yeah, they don't
They just don't care
understand
about people, yeah.
they don't understand the graphic or what the quadrants. But I was thinking about that, and I thought, man, how I don't know, disappointing must that be to
Yeah,
sort of put out your life's work in the form of a book, and then to find out that people are using it in this way and to have it spoofed, on a TV show. That it seems like that might be a little painful.
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know.
and you know what's interesting, Jeff, is that for the first I should have done this before, we met here, but apparently there is a book club guide on the website for this book.
Oh, no kidding.
Also, she has a podcast, or someone related to the book has a podcast, and yeah, the graphics there. Anyway, one of her blog posts is brutal honesty and radical candor. So, meaning
Mm,
like radical candor is not brutal honesty.
yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a good point. I see. I get it. Yeah, yeah.
Mm,
I think there were things about this book that really resonated with me. That's I talk about empathy a lot. Um, I love, I also love the distinction between the compassion or the caring and the empathy, um, and the ruinous empathy, like you said. A lot of us fall into that trap. Leslie says ruinous empathy is a trap full of women. After they crawl out of that trap, they trip into the obnoxious aggression category. A little coaching makes a huge difference. This is where mentors matter. That that was a well painted story right there. I like that a lot.
mm.
Um, and Leslie, since that's what your comment is right now, it's a fantastic comment. I want to give you a heads up because October 20th, I'm not going to announce who the guest or guests are yet because that may still be evolving. But October 20th for Context and Clarity Live, we're going to mentorship is going to be the topic. So that week, I would imagine that we'll spend the entire week talking about mentors and mentorship, et cetera. So put that on your calendar coming up October 20th. Barry says, "Howdy. Hi, Barry.
Hi,
Good
Barry.
evening." Says he didn't manage to get this one in amongst the others. So I'm here to leech all the nuggets from you guys.
Leech the nuggets.
Just leech away.
Nuggets.
Love it.
Oof, I don't like that word nuggets.
Or leech.
Yeah, leeching the nuggets. I don't know. It's kind of. I'm not gonna
Well,
tell you what I'm thinking.
there's a nice visual too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm still thinking
Jing
about tripping into obnoxious aggression.
yeah.
Yeah.
That somehow that reminds me of, mythology somehow.
Mm.
Um, I don't know. Jing, your comments are showing up on the screen now, so welcome back from Houston. Glad you're here. Jefferson said it needed a good bit of editing. There seemed to be a bit of redundancy in the
Yeah.
anecdotes and
Yeah.
content. I agree.
Mm.
And he also says that Silicon Valley was a wonderful and wacky show.
Hmm. I could
All right.
try that.
I'll have to,
Watch that sometime.
yeah, I've never heard of it. I'll have to look it up. Jake, Jake says 20 minutes later, are my comments visible now? They are. Have you been trying for 20 minutes? I'm trying to keep an eye
It
on
is
the
20 minutes already.
yeah, that's amazing.
I don't know. Have we gotten any nuggets in 20 minutes?
I don't know.
We need to do some nuggets.
I haven't shared any, I know that.
Okay. Let's see if I can find any on this website for book clubs.
Leslie says she once had a partner who used brutal honesty like a sword.
Hmm.
I think Leslie's in writing mode today.
That's good.
It is good. Manuel,
It's nice when she's doing that.
you made it over to the screen here. He says, I do feel bad for Bob. That yeah, Bob pops up at the beginning of the book as well, and then more of his story is told later. He says, "I do feel bad for Bob, whom she had to fire for mistakes she made, according to what she said in the videos. It seems
Mhm.
that there's a lot of wisdom at the expense of someone else's life. Um, this, without sharing too much, but this in our mastermind group this week, there's someone in our group who's had an employee issue that they've been dealing with for quite a few weeks now, actually. And so it was a great, I guess, segue to talk about this book a little bit. And the story of Bob, I think, is an important one. Basically, no one ever told Bob what his shortcomings were. No one ever told Bob that they were fixing the flaws in his work and things like that. And eventually, she had to fire him. And his comment was what like why did no one ever tell me or something like that. You know, he's
Mhm.
basically blindsided. I think that's one of a lot of great lessons in the book, again, about just like you said, Manuel, it's communication, um, and relationships, and it doesn't have to be just with, between boss and employee, although that's the context of the book. I think it goes beyond that.
Mhm. Hey, is anybody else gonna join us on the screen, do you think?
I don't know, I hope so.
Hmm.
Let me post the link here again.
Uh, there's some interesting questions here on in this, book club thing. The
So
thing is, like, in terms of my own, because it all comes back to me and how it relates to me and my practice, since I don't have a team that I kind of have a team, but I don't have a team of employees. So, but one of the reasons I don't is because I don't like radical candor. So I think that actually does kind of relate because I have had employees before and I just find it difficult. But I think this book would help, if I try to develop relationships based on the principles in this book.
yeah, I think that's probably something that a lot of us feel as well. Um, any of us that like to avoid conflict.
Hmm.
Um, y- I once thought, and someone has probably written this book, but I once this is because of an office situation. I thought somebody should write a book about how to have difficult conversations, and I
Mm,
think this is sort of that book.
I think so.
Um,
Yeah.
uh, but yeah, that's anytime there's someone else added to the mix, whether it's one person or multiples, it gets
Hmm.
more and more dynamic, and we've got to figure out how to relate to all of those things. And
Yeah.
I was listening to this. I think it was this morning when I was listening to it, thinking, there's so much to learn in this book, but at the same time, a lot of it is at least semantics, like, oh, if you phrase it this way, and
Mm,
there were several things that she said, in the book, and she phrased it away, and I went, oh man, yeah,
mhm,
that's a really great point.
yeah.
She talks about, oh, how does she put it? Where you don't make it personal. Um,
You
I
don't
was
make it
gonna,
personal about them, but you make the statement like, "I think you're wrong." Not like you're wrong, but I think that is wrong.
yeah,
I like the difference between
yeah.
those 2 statements.
But it's some little twist, right?
Mhm,
And when she said that, I thought, that's a minor semantic thing, but it really has a huge impact.
mm. On the way people
Um,
receive that, yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah, that was another thing. It's not measured at the point it leaves the speaker's mouth. It's measured at the
Yeah,
receiver's ear or something like that. And I thought
yeah, that makes sense
that's
too.
that's a really good point. Oh,
Do you,
there's some,
you know how she says it's telling being radically candid with somebody or having this radical candor is like telling someone that their fly is down or they
yeah.
have something in their teeth, and so you kinda
Mhm.
have a choice to do that or let it go and let 15 other people see whatever, and
Yeah.
then they'll find out later and be embarrassed, even more embarrassed. So, are you the type of person who would tell someone that their fly is down or they have something in their teeth, or do you avoid that?
That's a good question. I would so those 2 examples, because one was much more embarrassing than the other. Um,
Which 2 examples? The fly being
the
down or food in your teeth?
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah.
You think one's way more embarrassing. I don't know. Anyway, continue. I assume you mean the food in your teeth's more embarrassing, right?
No.
No.
It's more embarrassing to bring up maybe. I think I would tend to tell them, although that's
It's
some
embarrassing
of
to
it.
tell them, but I tell them. I always tell them, even strangers, and I
Yeah.
don't know them, and I feel like this is embarrassing, but you're gonna go around like this, and it's gonna be worse for you later. So,
Yeah. Well, and that's exactly the point that she's making, right? It's you're saving them the pain, and maybe you're taking on some of that discomfort yourself, but you're saving this person a lot of pain. And I like I think I don't think she ever says it this way, but I think a theme here is, um, you know, this is communication between me and you. It's interpersonal communication, however we view it. Um, but a lot of this is not about me, right? If I'm supporting you, I'm trying to save you the pain. I'm willing to take some of this myself. It reminded me a little bit of our conversation with Trina and Alfonso a couple of weeks ago now, 3 weeks ago maybe, where we talked about the personal. We all have personal responsibility, and to me, this sort of fell in there. It's like I have a personal responsibility, as Jefferson says. Yes, tell them. Gene says, depending on how well you know that person, which I absolutely
mhm.
get that.
Yeah.
Um,
I'd rather have a
um,
stranger tell me. Like women, well, at least me, I have had more incidents where my, skirt is tucked into my tights or something like that in the back, and that's like, oh god. So if someone tells me that, I don't even know the person, I just walked out of the bathroom, like, at a restaurant, I'm sure glad they told me.
yeah.
Jeez, that's so embarrassing, I'm just feeling embarrassed even thinking about it.
Yep.
Anyway, so that is a kindness to someone.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, radical candor. It would be nice if we could practice radical candor somewhere, so get the nervousness out of the way and have
Mhm.
just like kind of developing the courage to tell people things you need to tell them.
I thought it was one of the problems that I had with the book, other than the narrator.
Yeah, we agreed. We don't love the narrator.
Yeah.
I don't
Um,
know what it was about her, but I don't like her voice. I don't like the way she talks. I just didn't
yeah,
believe her. I didn't believe her when she was reading in the first person. Like, I didn't believe that was her story, I guess.
that's a good point. I mean, I don't, Catherine and I were talking about this before we went live, and I also can't put my finger on it. I don't know why, but there's something about the narrator of this book that I didn't like, and I don't know what it is. Um, but maybe that's it. Knowing that this is not Kim Scott narrating the book, and the narrator keeps saying I, telling
Mhm,
telling Kim Scott's or Kim Scott's story. So maybe that is it. Maybe that's the disconnect. But
mm,
um, that
I don't
and I
anyway,
was wrong about how you pronounce Joni Ives. So I guess I can't hold that against her.
yeah.
But
But you were gonna
but
say
yeah.
something else when I interrupted you about that. You were saying
Oh,
something you didn't like about the book, and it wasn't the narrator, you said?
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you. The I struggled with, and then it becomes an existential struggle for me because I get frustrated when we have great resources or great books or stories or anything, tools or anything in front of us, and we go, "Oh, well, that's not from architecture, so that can't possibly work in this context, in this situation." That
Mhm.
frustrates the heck out of me when we do things like that. And I was listening to the book and all of her stories. Of course, her experience is like working at Google with Sheryl Sandberg and
She's a little bit of a
um,
name dropper, BT dubs. Like, she
yes,
didn't have to actually say all those people's names, right?
yeah,
You could
yeah.
have them
She
be
brings up Sheryl Sandberg like 73 times and
my
Steve
boss.
Jobs 86 times and
Right.
Joni Ives 47 times. All of this,
Larry.
but yeah,
Larry,
yeah,
my boss at yeah.
yep, yeah. I
I
forgot
don't know.
about
I just
Larry.
that was a little bit like, I am super smart and I went to Harvard and I had all these things and here I'm
Yeah,
gonna tell you something,
yeah.
which is fine, I
It
guess. That's
yeah,
fine,
well,
good for
yeah,
her.
it absolutely is. I mean, and it's her experience and her story, so
Mhm.
great. Um, but I was feeling that disconnect between our community of entrepreneur architects and
Mm,
big tech companies.
sure. So you're
And
saying you were even feeling it, the thing that you gets you irritated about not being able to relate.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, that was the point that I was not getting to. Um, I was feeling that, and then I was thinking about, like it's Larry Page, right? Um, stories of Larry Page and how he liked to be challenged, and um, these are a lot of this she's talking about are workplace culture.
Mhm.
I guess going back to Trina and Alfonso, we all need to take a personal responsibility for things, etc. Um, all of her examples are big workplace culture, and I started thinking about, um, if you well, if you're a sole practitioner, one, but let's say you have one employee or three employees, you have a relatively small architecture firm. Does this translate? And I guess it does
Yeah, it does.
because it's personal communication.
Mhm.
But I was just having trouble with the stories, just making the leap.
Well, yeah, I mean, she was talking a lot about teams and rearranging teams and having multiple teams
Yeah, yeah,
within the
yeah.
company, so it was just a different scale, you
Definitely.
know?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that
That's a good way to put it. Very different scale.
yeah. But still, the way that we talk to people and, the way that we talk to people and tell them when they aren't doing work exactly the way we want them to do it,
Yeah.
and helping them actually work better for us, like, that's not helping them or us, and I think that's her point, really.
Yeah. Well, one of those videos that Manuel's talking about, and I watched all three of those. I assume they're the same videos. I watched all three of those videos today as well. and I posted them in the Facebook group. But one, actually, there's two versions of the 6 minutes to radical candor or something like that. Um, they're nearly identical. And then there's a, what was it, 14-minute or so video where she presented a keynote at HubSpot's um, big conference that they have every year. Um, and I was going somewhere with that. So I watched those videos and I lost my train of thought.
And two of them are the same, and the other one wasn't the same. Look, you know what? I'm
Mhm.
going to, but we're going to take a station break for a second for me to say that I'm going to send the link to Jefferson and anybody else who wants it. I'm going to send you through Facebook. But keep talking, Jeff.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, you could if you haven't read the book, you can watch any of those videos and get a good summary of what the book is. Obviously, the 16 minutes or the 14-minute video, there's at least twice as much information in there. But you can watch those and get a good summary. Jake says he never read the book, never even Googled the book. But far too often, we as humans operate in a filtered mode, moderating our thoughts and speech, or we operate in the brutal honesty. She addresses that. Both have their place, but neither approach gives us the authority to be rude or out of line. Hopefully, this is along the lines of the book. Yeah, I would say it is, and I think it's so you're what do I want to say? Your spectrum, I guess, there goes from filtered to brutal honesty. And um, a lot of the book is really about modulating that. How can you be brutally honest, but at the same time, well, yeah, how can you be brutally honest, but at the same time do it in a caring way? So if you Google radical candor and click on images, you're going to get this, or even just go to, what is it, radicalcandor.com, I think. You're going to see
Hmm.
what do you call that? The four quadrants of radical candor. The axes of that divide up those quadrants. The vertical one is called care personally, and the other
Hmm.
one is called challenge directly. The horizontal axis. And as you might imagine, if you go too far on the care part, then I don't know what you call that. It's way too filtered, maybe. It's very soft. If you go too far on the challenge axis, then you're that brutally honest, rude, nasty, whatever. So I think it's sort of, how do you modulate these things? One quadrant is called ruinous empathy. So being too
Too
whatever,
nice. Too
too
nice to
nice. Yeah,
people.
yeah, too nice. One is called manipulative insincerity. So you
That's like
pretend
stabbing
like,
them in the back,
yep, yep, you
basically.
pretend like you care, but you use it against them. One is called obnoxious aggression, which I don't think is a surprise to anybody.
Hmm.
And then the fourth quadrant, which is the aspirational one, right? It's radical candor.
That's where you care personally, but you're also willing, you're ready to make people angry by telling them the truth.
Yeah. Or even just, I guess it wouldn't have to escalate to that point, but you're challenging them.
Right. We're
You're
saying stuff that
you're
they don't want to hear necessarily.
questioning, you're pushing back. Yeah. Yep. All of those things.
Um, at one point somewhere in the book or that video, she was talking about how the conversations, rather than people putting themselves in these quadrants, that you should think of conversations you're having as falling into these quadrants, rather
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
just
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
am always obnoxiously aggressive, but you could just, yeah. So it's like the thing, like just a conversation being on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
one other thing that I thought was really interesting that she was talking about was the idea of the what you call them, the rock stars and the superstars. So the people who
Yep.
were very good at their jobs and they like their jobs, and sometimes when those people are they don't want to be promoted necessarily, and if they're promoted to a managerial position, let's say, then they don't do well because that's really not what they want to do. So just deciding, trying to figure out who's a superstar, what people's life goals are, their career goals and everything, and trying to help people get there as part of your caring. Like you know them personally and you know what's gonna and taking care of both your rock stars and your superstars. So I thought
Yeah,
that
that
was
yeah, yeah, that was a good section. So the thing that um that I was trying to remember about that when she because I think she starts off talking about rock stars, and I thought, okay, well, I know what a rock star is, but
mhm,
the rock star is the rock solid
mhm,
people, and the
yeah,
superstars, and I'm going, well, what's the difference between rock star and superstar? So rock star is the rock solid, and the superstars are those like I forget what term she used, but like the fast advancers, or that's not the way she said it, but the ones that are wanting
get
to
promoted and everything.
yeah, exactly, and I think it's that I think that's a danger in a different way, but I think that's a danger in our community because oftentimes we can talk about growth or building our businesses or um, uh, some version of that, and that's why I try to be careful when we anytime we're talking about growth to say that doesn't necessarily mean adding people or whatever. You get to determine, you get to decide what growth means to you. And when she was talking about that rock star versus superstar, and I worked with an organization one time where the CEO could not understand why. Let's just put it in the context of an architecture firm. We'll start with a sole practitioner.
What was that?
I have no idea what that was.
Sound like your stomach. Are you hungry?
No, that was not my stomach. Um, the the CEO could not understand why a sole practitioner would not want to just explode the size of their firm, like grow the size of their firm tremendously. And I think, as I was listening to, um, her talk about that rock star versus superstar, that really struck me because I think it's a totally different context, but I think it's the same thing. Like you could in your business want to grow in a certain way that
Hmm.
doesn't have to do with exploding the size of your firm or anything like that.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
so
it's true. Or you could have somebody who, like I haven't been in that many organizations, like bigger organizations, but my husband has and my friends have. And I just, in this book, saw a lot of ways in which that was mismanaged or people being promoted
yeah,
just because that seems like that's the next step in your life, but they didn't really want to be in a different position. So, anyway, it was interesting. Hi, Jefferson.
Jefferson. This is no reflection on Jefferson, but I'm going to step away for a minute to see what that noise was. I'll be right back.
Okay. Well, it's just you and me then, Jefferson.
Yeah,
We could turn, well, he's just going to step away.
yeah. I sort of missed some of the last comments, but what you having been in small firms and big firms, when you're in a big firm or in a larger about, it is interesting how there are two types of people: the people that are climbing the ladder who just sort of do their part to keep the organization running, and I've been one of the more significant nuggets of the book to me.
Hmm.
But the it's my wife and I in a practice with outsourced production, and there's no lessons in this situation.
So you think there's no lessons to be taken away? Your
No,
your
I think
sound is your sound's going in and out, Jefferson. I don't know if it's just me.
it's probably my phone, but it is the way that it is.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's to be taken away, but they're mostly for quite large organizations, hiring and firing at the pace and speed that they do in some of those, particularly in the technology fields. They
Mm,
talk of firing fast. It's not
mm, true.
sure. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there aren't a lot of parallels between tech. I mean, yeah, between the tech companies and then our companies. But I just feel like one of the takeaways for me was just what I said in the beginning, I guess, about how I am not as willing to. Well, she was saying that the challenge directly axis was also the willing to piss people off axis. Oh, hey, Jeff, is everything okay? Is your house still there above you?
Still here. The dogs aren't happy, but
Was
house is
it
still here.
thunder? What was it?
I have no idea.
Yeah,
I
I could
didn't.
even hear it all the way here in Massachusetts. It was pretty loud.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it was.
Hmm. The
We'll see.
crickets coming to take your house away.
Yeah,
Um, Jeff had a cricket in his office yesterday. That's what the cricket sound was, everyone.
it was Jiminy.
Wouldn't that be nice? Anyway, um, so that's one of my big takeaways is like that I have to be more willing to say what needs to be said and not worry about hurting someone's feelings and doing it in a way that isn't going to hurt their feelings, but telling them what they need to hear professionally. Because I have 1099 people and I just stop using them rather than tell them like this is what I'm not appreciating about the way you're doing the work, and instead I just go find somebody else because I don't want to have to deal with it. Which isn't. I'm just admitting that it's not very
yeah,
good.
that was actually one of the interesting parts, at least in first chapter. But it was sort of the intro where she talked about the idea that radical candor, depending on who's receiving, has to change in many,
yeah.
many ways. And I think that's probably one of the strong points is that she's speaking obviously as a very male dominated, at particularly at the time that she was doing it, probably was probably, you know, an interesting aspect to it, to think about people with um, ethnicities or size or whatever in how you say things to, and maybe as a white man have a tendency to be more, we're privileged in that way. Um, but it was interesting to read how she stepped up and did what she needed to do, which was, if you look at the arc of it, damn amazing. So
Mm.
Yeah, I did think I remember now what I was going to say about it took a trip upstairs to figure out what I was going to say about the video. Um, she opens the video, the one where she's doing the keynote for HubSpot for the HubSpot conference, the inbound conference is what it's called. Um, talking about because it's a change in context, right? In the book, it's how to be a kick-ass boss, but now she's talking to employees and others in the HubSpot ecosystem, and she talks about using this to do your best work and what was the other term? But basically build relationships and do your best work. And so she was able to sort of transcend the different contexts. And I think that relationship piece of it is a huge part of this. And at the beginning of the book, I don't remember if this. I guess it sort of ebbs and flows as it goes through the book, but she talks a lot about those relationships. And I thought, as you were kind of saying, Jefferson, over the past several weeks, there have been a lot of examples of, hey, this isn't one size fits all. And that's almost the lesson here. Maybe that is the lesson here. It's like it's not one size fits all, but you've got to be caring enough to relate to people and what's the other and challenge enough to push people and to communicate and Matthew says he didn't like how she associated low growth with rock solid and different types of growth. Um, uh, Up isn't the only direction to grow, and that's how she distinguished between the rock solid and the superstars. The superstars were the ones that really, want to be on a trajectory. And the rock stars were the ones that like to do their work, want to do their work, but aren't interested maybe in climbing the ladder, if that's
Yeah.
one way to say
Right,
it.
because climbing the ladder could get them in a different position they don't want.
In that chapter she goes all into the Peter principle,
Mhm,
and other things. And I think that's one of the things I've been fascinated about a lot. I've worked in a handful of big firms. You see that all the time, not unique to architecture, or big firms for that matter, but people that get promoted beyond their ability, right? You're really, really good at this, and a lot of times you really like doing that, and then you get promoted into a position where you're not comfortable and you're not doing what it is that you love to do, and you're not doing what you're good at.
mhm.
And so she suggests compensation models that aren't necessarily related to or just to the next position up.
Yeah,
I think that's something to really think about.
I thought it was interesting when she was talking about how finding out what people's ambitions are or life goals are or in their interest, like which skills they can bring to the company, that because it fits into their longer goals and it can help them make their job right now relevant to, like, the woman who wanted to run a spirulina farm. Remember
Yeah.
that? So,
Yes.
stuff like that, or the guy, one of her nannies, how she helped them go on help them with their own career paths and find out what their
Yeah.
strengths were and try to help them get more experience in their strengths. I don't know. That was also a good point. Like, we talk a lot about people moving on and not staying or retention and stuff, but if you just think about that, you are helping this person along their career path, which we've also talked about.
Yeah.
It's kind of along those lines.
Manuel
But
says he did. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
the empathy that she talks about is probably newer in the corporate
Mm.
world. And so as she's writing it and talking about the people that work with you as people, as well as what they do at work, is suspect a fairly common thing that people understand, but a fairly new thing to talked about as how best practices to run that type of an organization.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's where I think understanding her perspective, like understanding her experience, is really important here, because I think, we've touched on a couple of things that, and maybe that's part of the disconnect I was feeling as well. But I think it is important to understand that environment, the Google, the Apple, the Microsoft, the whatever. Um, that's a good point. That not a culture, or not a uh, um, well, maybe culture that you would think of as, oh yeah, this is a empathetic place to be, or these are just people that are hanging out and loving each other.
Yeah.
Manuel wants to know, what's the Peter principle. Peter principle, let's see, it's named after Lawrence J. Peter, and it says that he, according to him, it observes that people in a hierarchy tend to rise to a level of respective incompetence. Employees are promoted based on their success in previous roles. And where's the rest of it? It went away. Hang on. Promoted based on their success in previous roles until they reach a level at which they are no longer competent, as skills in one job do not necessarily translate to another job.
Yeah.
Yep.
And probably it is any type of industry. I mean, architecture being one simple small slice. There's a good and then the next step up is not something that you're skilled at or know what you're doing. We learn.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a really good point, because I think if you're a sole practitioner, or if you're you have a couple of employees or 1099s or whatever it is, well, the Peter principle doesn't apply in this case. Well, I think it does. I think it does, because there are an awful lot of people in this community that are doing things that they're uncomfortable with, and that may mean the different aspects of your work. Hey, I really love the design portion. To oversimplify it, I really love the design portion of it, but man, I'm terrible at these details, or this, that, or the other. So if that were in a bigger office, you might have started to sort of progress up this ladder where you had your role in that office. You got promoted to a certain point where you're a project manager, or you're, whatever that role was. And now you're outside of your comfort zone, to way oversimplify it. But in your own practice, you're having to promote yourself into those roles over and over, per the hour, or per the day, or per the task at hand. And it's different, certainly, but I think that's the feeling of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. The
Manual
aspect is you're the person that's going to be the judge and jury of that too. So really, other people giving her feedback on employees and talking about whether they were performing or not, she's getting a lot more input than we do. Although maybe if we were paying attention, we'd.
Yeah, this is true. Manuel says he didn't mind the name dropping because he had no idea who any of them were. It helped him follow the story.
I wonder if Bob is his real name, that guy, and wonder how Bob feels about being included.
I don't know.
I'm guessing Bob is a little bit like Karen. I think it's a prototype.
Okay, it's just Bob.
Bob.
My name, Bob.
Yeah.
Who smokes in the bathroom at work.
Yeah, if you read the book, you didn't get that part of the story, but if you watch the HubSpot video, the inbound video, you get the story about Bob smoking pot in the bathroom. That was candid.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So we get a little more Bob with that backstory. That's
yeah.
A lot more
see
sense.
A little bit. Yeah. It does.
So Bob was just a rock.
Yeah, but he wasn't a star. He was just a rock. I think he didn't do his job very well.
Yeah, he was just a rock.
Just a rock. Bob the Rock.
Yeah.
Hey, I hate to break up the party, but I need to go now that it's 5.
No worries. We made it to the top of the hour.
Woo!
Thank you, everybody.
Wait,
I think,
don't forget what you promised you would say before we left.
I know. If you haven't read this book, yes, I think you can watch some of these videos and you can get a lot of it. Obviously, the book goes into much more depth and detail and more stories. But I do think this is an important, there are lots of important lessons in this book. So check it out. Radical Candor by Kim Scott. So thank you to Catherine and Jefferson for being here on screen, and everybody else in the comments. It was a good discussion on this, and I encourage everybody to find out more. Now, I did promise that I would reveal the October book before we wrapped up this session. So for the Context and Clarity Book Club, and it's interesting that we have Jefferson on the screen for this, for the October Context and Clarity Book Club, the book will be, there's the drum roll.
And now we go to a commercial, right? Then you come back and say it again.
To be continued. No, Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. It is a great book, and Catherine and I were talking about this earlier. Some of you have been talking for a while about reading or implementing Profit First, so we thought this would be a great time to use it as the book club book. We'll discuss it on the last Friday of October, which is Friday, October 28th, right before the Entree Architect Community Annual Meeting in Austin, Texas. So um, you've got a little over a month at this point to read Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. It's not an 11-hour, 12-hour read. So,
8
um,
hours, 24 minutes.
okay, it's longer than I thought. Um, so check it out. Reread it if you've already read it, and we'll talk about Profit First by Mike Michalowicz and maybe even how you're implementing it if you're doing that already. Next week, I've got to double check this because the last time I talked with Joyce Martyr, who is our scheduled Context and Clarity live guest for next week, she was in Southwest Florida.
Mm,
So right
yeah.
now, I'm assuming that Joyce Martyr is still our guest. That may need to change, but I'll let you know as soon as possible. I'll post about this tomorrow morning. Have a great weekend. Thanks for this week of great discussions, and hope you have a good one. Be well, stay safe, keep those around you safe and well. Find some time to breathe. It's a good time of year to breathe, unless, of course, it's hurricane winds.
Yeah.
Relax. Find a way to rejuvenate. We'll see you next week, everybody. Thank you.